Good morning. This is Dylan Jovine Behind the Markets. Happy Thursday. Today's Thursday, March 19, and it is pouring in South Florida, so I have to wear my rain jacket. Anyway, today I'd like to talk about a report out from the World Gold Council that proves that gold has officially dethroned the US dollar as the world's reserve currency. What a shame. What an actual, absolute shame. Gold has surpassed the dollar as the world's reserve asset for the first time in 30 years. And basically, I have some notes here. As of early 2026, central banks around the globe held approximately 4 trillion in gold, which is obviously greater than the 3.9 trillion held in US Treasuries. And this shift underscores a few different things. One thing it really underscores is the fundamental change that we're watching right now as the dollar gets replaced or loses its top spot as the world's reserve currency. And this is not a good thing for us. As a matter of fact, I would argue, and a lot of very rich, very famous, very smart people have argued the very same thing. The dollar losing its place as the world's reserve currency would be worse for the United States than losing any war. Immediately, everything that's priced in dollars, which is everything, would be repriced 30% downward. And the funny thing about watching countries lose their status as the reserve currency is that it's like the frog in the boiling pot analogy. It doesn't happen once at a time. It's not like you take the frog and you throw it into boiling water and it just jumps out. What happens is the water is warm and comfortable, just like it is right now, and then the heat gets turned up slowly, and before you know it, the frog gets burned alive. That is happening right now to Americans. And how did we get here? Really, how did we get here? How are we blowing such a wonderful privilege, a privilege to have the world's reserve currency, a privilege that has kept our interest rates low, a privilege that has kept our stock market high, a privilege that is responsible for a third of your net worth. Basically, imagine your net worth would be worth a third less if the dollar keeps losing its place as the world's reserve currency. There are a few different things. There are two major things that brought us here. It started in 2016 with, frankly, Trump's election. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. He added in his first term $7.4 trillion in debt. Biden, not to be undone, came very close to matching that, added $7.2 trillion in debt, and Trump looks set to repeat it and add about $8 trillion in debt. So basically, what is happening is investors are selling dollar-denominated, like treasuries, as a reserve asset and saying, we don't want U.S. treasuries at all. We don't want dollar-denominated assets at all because your government just keeps borrowing too much. And we're afraid that if we buy treasuries that have a 3% coupon for 30 years or 4% coupon, that the way you guys are printing money, borrowing and borrowing and borrowing and borrowing, that inflation will eat up at that fixed coupon. See, we're going to buy $1 million in treasuries. We're getting paid 4%, 40 grand a year, but you guys are going to keep borrowing and borrowing money. So our coupon is fixed at $40,000 a year, but that $40,000 a year is not going to be worth anything, basically, in 30 years because you're printing so much money. The value of the bond is going to go down. So basically, it's variable printing against a fixed coupon, and nobody who manages money would ever lend the U.S. government long-term right now because we're just printing too much money. So if you look at central bank gold buying, this really started to happen in 2016. And when we wrote this report, Death of the Dollar, in 2022, it was well underway. I wrote that entire report and created that entire marketing campaign based on reports from the World Gold Council. It wasn't some visionary, amazing idea. The only thing visionary and amazing about it, there was no one else saying it. Everyone had access to the same data. So This started in 2016. It's very, very clear. So it started with Trump, the election of Trump, 2016. And then Biden made a catastrophic mistake by freezing Russia's assets during its invasion of Ukraine, because we froze basically Russia's central bank assets, which China, as our primary competitor, went around to every country. And they tried to get them to use the yuan, their currency, as a replace. Say, look, you can't trust the United States. If you do something they don't like, they're just going to freeze your bank assets. You can't hold things in dollars. You can't hold U.S. Treasuries. They'll just take them unless you do what they say. So China goes around to all of our enemies, because remember, this is like a boxing match. If we drop our guard, they're going to try to hit us, right? They're going to try to hit us. And that's what they did. We dropped our guard, and they just started going around to all of our allies and everybody and saying, look, don't trust the U.S. You got to get your money out of there. And try us, the yuan. Okay, you don't want to do the yuan because we don't have capital controls and we don't have free floating currency. How about this? Just put your money in gold. So China is going out in this big geopolitical chess match to weaken U.S. hegemony. China's going out and has contributed to this. So this is entirely unforced errors on our part. Trump starting this spending craze. It's not partisan. I'm just attacking Trump. We got to call it the way it is. Got to go the balls and strikes. Trump and Biden, totally bipartisan. The only thing both parties agree on is spending money. Anybody who tells you differently is full of it. So yeah, they started blowing out the budget, and they made Treasuries something people don't want to own. They start blowing out the budget, and then Biden freezes those reserve currencies of Russia. Two mistakes, unforced errors, they call it in tennis. And the problem is, again, like that frog, we're not going to feel it day to day. It's not like 9/11. I was there on 9/11. All of a sudden you see, boom, Trade Center comes down and we're all running away. That was a one day before and after kind of scenario. The world changed. This is not going to be like that. This is going to be one of those frog, slow boil scenarios. Unfortunately for my kids, our grandkids, and so on, unless serious change happens with an administration, with our elected leaders, this is not going to change for a while. Anyway, that's all I have. Have a good day. I will see you tomorrow.